The morning sun shone through the windows of the Denver Animal Shelter as Jake Martinez walked through the rows of cages. He had been working here for 6 months now, ever since he retired from the Army. The job was simple and quiet, which was exactly what he needed after 20 years of military service. Jake stopped at the last cage in the row. Inside sat a large German Shepherd mix that everyone called Rex. The dog was huge, with thick black and brown fur and the most intelligent eyes Jake had ever seen on an animal. Rex had been at the shelter for 3 months now, and nobody wanted to adopt him. "Morning, boy," Jake said softly. Rex looked up at him with those strange, knowing eyes. The dog never barked like the others. He never jumped around or wagged his tail when people walked by. He just sat there and watched everything with an intensity that made most visitors uncomfortable. Jake opened the cage door, and Rex stepped out calmly. Other dogs would rush out excited to be free, but Rex moved with purpose and dignity. They walked outside to the exercise yard together. Jake had noticed that Rex was different from day one. The dog seemed to understand complex commands without being taught. He could open simple latches with his paws. He never fought with other dogs and always seemed to know when someone was sad or upset. "You're too smart for your own good," Jake told him as they walked. "That's why families don't want you. You make them nervous." Rex looked up at Jake and tilted his head slightly. Sometimes Jake felt like the dog was trying to tell him something important, but he couldn't figure out what it was. 3 families had tried to adopt Rex over the past month. The first family brought their 2 young children to meet him. The children were excited at first, running up to the cage with big smiles. But when Rex sat perfectly still and stared at them with those deep, thoughtful eyes, the children stepped back. They whispered to their parents that the dog looked too serious, too much like he was thinking about things. The second family was a young couple who wanted a guard dog for their new house. They liked Rex's size and strength, but during the meet and greet, something strange happened. Rex looked at the man for a long moment, then walked away and sat in the corner of the room. He wouldn't come when they called his name. It was like he had decided they weren't right for him. The third family was an older couple whose previous dog had died. They spent an hour with Rex, petting him and talking to him gently. Rex was polite but distant. When they left, the woman told Jake that it felt like the dog was judging them, like he could see into their souls and found them lacking. Jake didn't understand it either, but he had grown fond of the mysterious animal. Unlike the other workers and volunteers, Jake wasn't bothered by Rex's intense stare or his unusual behavior. Maybe it was his military training, but Jake respected the dog's quiet intelligence and calm demeanor. As they walked around the yard, Jake noticed something he had missed before. Rex was stretching and yawning in the morning sun when his thick collar shifted slightly. Underneath the regular collar, Jake caught a glimpse of something metallic. He had always assumed Rex just wore a regular ID tag like all the shelter animals, but this looked different. "What's that, boy?" Jake knelt down beside Rex and gently moved the collar. Hidden beneath the thick fur was a small, flat piece of metal attached to a thin chain. The tag was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. It wasn't the usual round or bone-shaped tag that most dogs wore. This one was rectangular and made of what looked like silver, but it had a strange quality to it that made it seem to glow with its own light. Jake looked closer at the surface of the tag. There were symbols etched into the metal, but they weren't letters or numbers that he recognized. The symbols were flowing and curved, almost like they were moving even though they were clearly carved into the solid metal. Jake had seen many different languages during his time in the Army, but these symbols were completely foreign to him. "Where did this come from?" he asked Rex. The dog looked at him with those intelligent eyes and made a soft sound that wasn't quite a whine or a bark. It was more like he was trying to answer but couldn't find the right way to communicate. Jake took out his phone and tried to take a picture of the tag, but something strange happened. Every time he pointed the camera at the symbols, they seemed to blur and shift. The image on his phone screen showed just a plain piece of metal with no markings at all. He tried several times, but the result was always the same. "That's weird," Jake muttered. He looked at the tag again with his own eyes and could clearly see the strange symbols. But when he tried to photograph them, they disappeared. Rex sat patiently while Jake examined the tag. The dog didn't try to pull away or seem bothered by the attention. If anything, he seemed to be waiting for Jake to understand something important. After a few more minutes, Jake gave up trying to photograph the tag and led Rex back inside. The rest of the day passed normally, but Jake couldn't stop thinking about what he had seen. The symbols on the tag bothered him. They looked almost like they had been made by advanced technology, not carved by hand, and the way they seemed to move and glow was unlike anything he had encountered before. That evening, after the shelter closed, Jake found himself thinking about Rex and the mysterious tag. He had always been curious by nature, and his military training had taught him to pay attention to details that others might miss. Something about this situation felt important even though he couldn't explain why. Jake decided to come back to the shelter after hours to take another look at the tag. He had a key to the building and often came in on weekends to check on the animals. He told himself he was just being thorough, but deep down he knew this was about more than simple curiosity. When he arrived at the shelter that night, Rex was sitting up in his cage as if he had been waiting for him. The dog's eyes seemed to glow in the dim light of the hallway, and Jake felt a strange sensation that this was exactly where he was supposed to be at this exact moment. He opened Rex's cage and the dog stepped out calmly. Together they walked to Jake's small office where he kept his laptop computer. Jake had an idea about those symbols, and he wanted to do some research to see if he could find anything similar online. But first, he needed to get a better look at that tag and maybe find a way to document what he was seeing, even if his phone camera wouldn't cooperate. Rex sat beside Jake's chair and looked up at him expectantly, as if he knew something important was about to happen. Jake opened his laptop and turned on the desk lamp for better light. Rex sat beside him, unusually still and alert. Jake had brought his good camera from home, the one he used for nature photography on weekends. Maybe a real camera would work better than his phone. He knelt down next to Rex and carefully moved the collar again to expose the strange tag. Under the bright light, the symbols seemed even more unusual. They had a depth to them that made them look three-dimensional, as if they were floating just above the surface of the metal. Jake had never seen anything like it. He raised the camera and looked through the viewfinder. The symbols were clearly visible to his naked eye, but when he looked at them through the camera, they appeared as plain scratches on metal. Jake lowered the camera and looked directly at the tag again. The flowing curved symbols were right there, almost glowing in the lamplight. "This is impossible," Jake said to himself. Rex made that soft sound again, the one that seemed like he was trying to communicate something important. Jake tried a different approach. He opened a drawing program on his laptop and attempted to sketch the symbols from memory. But as soon as he started drawing, the details slipped away from his mind like water through his fingers. He could see the symbols clearly when he looked at them, but he couldn't hold the image in his memory long enough to reproduce it. Frustrated, Jake sat back in his chair. Rex moved closer and gently placed his head on Jake's knee. The touch was comforting but also strange. Jake felt a tingling sensation where the dog's fur touched his skin, almost like a mild electric current. "What are you trying to tell me, boy?" Jake asked softly. Rex looked up at him with those impossibly intelligent eyes. For a moment, Jake had the crazy thought that the dog understood every word he was saying. Jake decided to try one more approach. He positioned his laptop so the screen was facing the tag and opened his photo editing software. Maybe if he took a picture of the screen while looking at the tag, something would show up. As Jake held the camera up to take a picture of his laptop screen, something incredible happened. The tag began to glow brighter and the symbols started to move. They shifted and rearranged themselves on the surface of the metal like living things. Jake watched in amazement as the symbols formed new patterns. Suddenly, his laptop screen flickered. Lines of text began appearing on the monitor, even though Jake hadn't typed anything. The words were in perfect English, appearing letter by letter as if someone was typing them remotely. "Emergency Beacon, Galactic Patrol Unit 7, appeared on the screen. Jake's hands started shaking. He looked at Rex, who was watching the screen with what could only be described as satisfaction. The text continued to appear. Officer designation Guardian Prime status active. Mission duration 1247 Earth days. Assessment phase complete. "This can't be real," Jake whispered. But the words kept coming. "If you're reading this message, Guardian Prime has determined you possess the necessary qualities for first contact. Please remain calm. You have been selected based on your demonstrated compassion, integrity, and protective instincts." Jake's military training kicked in. Even though his mind was reeling, he forced himself to stay calm and observe what was happening. Rex was no longer just sitting beside him. The dog had moved to face the laptop directly, and his eyes were fixed on the screen with obvious understanding. "Communication protocols will now be activated," appeared on the screen. "Please do not be alarmed by what you are about to see." Rex's collar began to emit a soft musical sound. It was unlike anything Jake had ever heard. Beautiful and complex like whale songs, but clearly artificial. The sound seemed to resonate in the air around them, and Jake felt it in his chest as much as he heard it with his ears. Above Rex's head, the air began to shimmer. Jake rubbed his eyes, thinking he was seeing things, but the shimmer grew stronger. Slowly, a three-dimensional image began to form in the space above the dog. It was translucent at first, like a reflection in water, but gradually became clearer and more solid-looking. The image showed what appeared to be a vast star map. Jake could see points of light connected by flowing lines, representing star systems and travel routes. Some of the stars pulsed with different colors, and Jake somehow understood that these indicated different types of civilizations or space stations. The star map rotated slowly, and Jake could see Earth's solar system marked with a small blue dot. Lines extended from Earth to several other star systems, and Jake realized he was looking at some kind of galactic navigation chart. "My God," Jake breathed. Rex looked up at him, and the musical sound from his collar changed tone, becoming more complex and layered. More text appeared on the laptop screen. "The being you know as Rex is Guardian Prime, a field agent of the Galactic Patrol. He has been assigned to your world for preliminary assessment and first contact preparation." Jake looked down at Rex, who was watching him carefully. The dog's expression seemed different now, more focused and purposeful. Those intelligent eyes suddenly made perfect sense. Guardian Prime volunteered for this assignment because of his species' natural shape-shifting abilities and his extensive experience with first contact situations. He chose the form of a domestic canine because your species demonstrates remarkable loyalty and affection toward these creatures. The holographic star map above Rex's head zoomed in on Earth's solar system. Jake could see what looked like a space station orbiting beyond Pluto, and several smaller objects that might have been ships moving between the outer planets. "The Galactic Patrol has been monitoring your world for several centuries, waiting for humanity to reach sufficient technological and social development for contact. Guardian Prime's mission was to integrate with human society and assess your species' readiness for galactic citizenship." Jake's mind struggled to process what he was learning. The dog he had been walking and feeding for months was actually an alien agent who had been studying humanity. It should have been terrifying, but somehow it wasn't. Rex had always been kind and gentle. If he was really an alien, he was a friendly one. Guardian Prime was scheduled to return to Galactic Patrol headquarters 6 months ago, the text continued. However, he requested an extension to his mission. His reports about humanity have been unusually positive. Rex made a sound that Jake now realized wasn't a dog's whine at all. It was clearly some form of speech in an alien language. The collar immediately translated the sound into words that appeared on the laptop screen. "Jake Martinez has shown exceptional kindness to all creatures under his care. He demonstrates the protective instincts and moral courage that would make humans valuable members of the galactic community." Jake stared at the words on his screen. Rex was talking about him specifically. The alien had been watching him, evaluating him, and apparently he had passed some kind of test. "How long have you been able to understand me?" Jake asked. Rex made several sounds, and the translation appeared immediately. "I have understood human languages since my arrival. I have been particularly impressed by your patience with animals that others consider difficult or unwanted. You see value where others see only problems." The holographic display above Rex's head changed to show images of other worlds. Jake saw cities that floated in the clouds of gas-giant planets, underwater civilizations, and space habitats that housed millions of beings. The galaxy was full of life, and humanity had no idea. "Why are you telling me this now?" Jake asked. Rex's response appeared on the screen with an urgency that made Jake's stomach tighten. "Because humanity's evaluation period is ending, and you are about to face your first test as a species. What happens in the next few days will determine whether Earth is invited to join the galactic community or left to develop in isolation for another 1,000 years." Jake felt the weight of those words. Somehow he had become part of something much bigger than caring for unwanted animals in a shelter. He was about to become part of humanity's first contact with alien civilizations. The star map zoomed out again, and Jake saw something that made his blood run cold. Several red dots were moving toward Earth's solar system, and they were much larger than the peaceful space station he had seen earlier. The holographic display above Rex's head flickered and changed. The image of the star map was replaced by what appeared to be the interior of a spacecraft. Jake could see control panels with lights and displays, and in the center of the image stood a figure that was clearly not human. The being was tall and slender, with elongated limbs and a graceful way of moving. Its skin had a pale blue tint, and its eyes were large and kind, taking up much of its face. When the creature spoke, the words came through Rex's collar in clear English. "Greetings, Jake Martinez. I am Commander Zara of the Galactic Patrol vessel Harmony. I have been monitoring Guardian Prime's mission to your world." Jake found his voice, though it came out as barely a whisper. "This is really happening, isn't it?" Commander Zara's expression showed what Jake interpreted as gentle amusement. "Yes, Jake, this is quite real. Guardian Prime has spoken highly of you in his reports. He believes you have the qualities necessary to help humanity through what comes next." Jake looked down at Rex, who was watching the holographic display with obvious familiarity. "So you're really an alien shapeshifter?" Rex made several sounds, and his translated response appeared on Jake's laptop screen. "I am a Kithran. My species has served as peacekeepers and first contact specialists for the Galactic Patrol for over 10,000 Earth years. We have the natural ability to take on the forms of other species, which makes us ideal for observation and integration missions." Commander Zara continued speaking from the hologram. "Guardian Prime volunteered for this assignment because he has always been fascinated by species that form strong emotional bonds with other creatures. Your dogs and cats particularly interested him because of the way humans care for beings that cannot speak your language or contribute to your economy. He wanted to understand what drives such compassion." Rex's translation added, "I have learned more about the nature of love and loyalty from living among humans than from centuries of study." Jake felt overwhelmed by the implications of what he was learning. How many other worlds know about this galactic community? The holographic display changed to show dozens of different species. Some looked almost human, while others were so alien that Jake couldn't even determine how they moved or communicated. There were beings that looked like living crystals, creatures with multiple arms and tentacles, and some that appeared to be made of pure energy. Currently, the Galactic Patrol includes 847 member species from 203 worlds, Commander Zara explained. Each species was evaluated using similar methods to what Guardian Prime has been doing on Earth. We have found that the best way to assess a species' readiness for galactic citizenship is to observe how they treat those who cannot defend themselves. Jake understood the implication immediately. "You've been watching how we treat our animals, and how you treat each other," Rex's translation confirmed. "The Galactic Patrol has observed your wars, your environmental destruction, and your social inequalities. But we have also observed your capacity for growth, your art and music, and your willingness to sacrifice for others." Commander Zara's image leaned forward slightly. "Guardian Prime's reports have been uniquely positive. Most first contact agents focus on technological advancement and military capabilities. Guardian Prime has focused on individual acts of kindness and the bonds humans form with creatures they consider family. Which brings us to the current situation," Rex's translation continued, and Jake noticed that the dog's tone had become more serious. "My evaluation period was supposed to end 6 months ago, but I requested an extension because I believed humanity deserved a chance to prove itself under pressure." The holographic display changed again, showing the red dots Jake had seen earlier moving toward Earth. They were much closer now, and Jake could see that they were massive ships, larger than anything humans had ever built. "What are those?" Jake asked, though he dreaded the answer. Commander Zara's expression grew grave. "They are devourer ships. The devourers are a species that consumes entire planets, stripping them of all resources and enslaving any survivors. They are one of the few truly hostile forces in this galaxy." Jake's military training helped him stay focused despite the terror he felt. "How long before they get here?" "Approximately 72 Earth hours," Commander Zara replied. "Under normal circumstances, the Galactic Patrol would intervene to protect a developing world from the devourers. However, your planet is not yet under our protection." "Why not?" Jake demanded. Rex's translation appeared immediately. "Because according to galactic law, a species must demonstrate its worthiness for protection by defending itself successfully against a major threat. It is an ancient law designed to ensure that only species capable of contributing to galactic peace and security are admitted to the community. Jake felt anger rising in his chest. So you're going to let an entire planet be destroyed just to see if we can fight back? Commander Zara's expression showed genuine sadness. I understand your anger, Jake. Many of us disagree with this law. However, it has prevented numerous wars and conflicts over the centuries. Species that cannot defend their own worlds often become sources of instability when given advanced technology too quickly. But you're not completely abandoning us, Rex's translation added. Guardian Prime is authorized to provide limited assistance, and you will not be fighting alone. The holographic display changed to show a map of Earth with 12 points of light scattered across different continents. Guardian Prime has identified 12 humans who possess the qualities necessary to coordinate humanity's defense. Each has been contacted simultaneously with this conversation. Jake stared at the map. 12 people to save the entire world? 12 coordinators, Commander Zara corrected. Each has been given access to technologies and resources that Guardian Prime has positioned around your planet over the past 3 years. You will not be fighting with primitive weapons. Rex made a complex series of sounds and the translation filled Jake's screen. I have spent 3 years identifying and testing potential leaders. You were chosen not because of your military experience, though that is valuable, but because of your ability to see worth in creatures that others have abandoned. The hologram showed images of underground facilities, hidden weapons caches, and what appeared to be defensive systems built into major cities around the world. While conducting his evaluation, Guardian Prime also prepared your world for this possibility. He has been building a defense network using technology that appears primitive to your scientists but is actually quite advanced. Jake's head was spinning with information. What exactly do you expect me to do? Commander Zara's image smiled, and Jake was struck by how human-like the expression was despite her alien features. You will coordinate the defense of the North American continent. Lieutenant Colonel Park in South Korea will handle Asian defenses. Dr. Hassan in Egypt will coordinate African and Middle Eastern efforts. Captain Morrison in Australia will manage the Pacific region. Each coordinator has been given specific technologies based on their expertise and local resources. Rex's translation continued. You will have access to shield generators, advanced communication systems, and weapons capable of damaging devourer ships. The reality of the situation was beginning to sink in. Jake was being asked to help save humanity from an alien invasion using technology he didn't understand, working with people he had never met, and trusting an alien dog who had been living in his animal shelter. How do I know I can trust you? Jake asked. Rex stood up and walked over to Jake's chair. The dog placed his head in Jake's lap and looked up at him with those familiar, intelligent eyes. For a moment, the alien technology and galactic politics faded away, and Jake just saw the gentle creature who had been bringing him comfort for months. Because, Rex's translation appeared on the screen. In all my centuries of service, I have never met a species that loved as deeply or fought as fiercely for those they care about as humans do. You don't just protect your own kind, you protect anything you consider family, even if it can never return the favor. Commander Zara's voice drew Jake's attention back to the hologram. The other coordinators are receiving similar briefings right now. In 1 hour, you will be connected to a secure communication network that will allow you to coordinate with them. Guardian Prime will remain with you to provide technical support and translation services. What if we fail? Jake asked. The hologram flickered as Commander Zara considered her answer. If you fail, the Galactic Patrol will record that humanity fought bravely, but was not yet ready for galactic citizenship. Your world will be designated as a protected developing planet, and we will ensure that no other hostile forces threaten you for at least 1,000 years. And if we succeed? Rex's translation appeared with what Jake could only interpret as pride. If you succeed, humanity will be invited to join the Galactic Patrol as full members. Your species will have access to technologies that will end poverty and disease on your world. You will be able to explore the galaxy and meet the 847 other species that call it home. Jake took a deep breath and made his decision. Tell me what I need to do. Commander Zara's holographic image began to flicker as she prepared to end the communication. Guardian Prime will now show you his true form and activate the emergency protocols. Remember, Jake, you are not alone in this fight. Trust in your species' greatest strength. What's our greatest strength? Jake asked. Rex looked up at him and made a sound that needed no translation. It was clearly laughter. The translated text appeared on his screen. Your ability to love creatures that are completely different from yourselves. The hologram faded, leaving Jake alone with Rex in the small office. The dog moved to the center of the room and looked at Jake with an expression that seemed almost apologetic. I must show you my true form now. Please do not be afraid. Jake watched in amazement as Rex's body began to change. The transformation was gradual and beautiful, like watching a flower bloom in slow motion. The dog's black and brown fur lightened to a silver color that seemed to glow with its own inner light. His body grew taller and more slender while his limbs became longer and more graceful. Rex's face elongated slightly, and his eyes grew larger, taking on a golden color that sparkled with intelligence and kindness. His ears became more pointed, and his tail developed a tuft of longer fur at the tip that moved like liquid silver. When the transformation was complete, the creature standing before Jake looked like a cross between a wolf, a lion, and something from a beautiful dream. This is my natural form, Guardian Prime said, and now Jake could hear his voice directly instead of reading translations on the screen. The voice was warm and melodious, with an accent that reminded Jake of wind chimes. I am sorry for the deception, but it was necessary for my mission. Jake stared at the magnificent being before him. You're beautiful, he said honestly. I can see why you chose to hide this. People would have been too amazed to treat you normally. Guardian Prime's golden eyes showed gratitude. That is exactly why I knew you were the right choice, Jake. Even now, when you learn that I have been deceiving you for months, your first thought is understanding rather than anger. I'm not angry, Jake realized with surprise. You've been nothing but kind to every person and animal in this shelter. You've been protecting us, haven't you? In small ways, yes, Guardian Prime admitted. I have prevented 3 accidents that would have injured staff members, guided lost animals back to safety, and used my abilities to calm aggressive dogs who might have been euthanized otherwise. Jake's laptop chimed with an incoming message. The screen showed a secure communication interface with 11 other video windows, each showing a different person. Jake recognized the diversity immediately. Men and women of different ages and ethnicities from around the world. Jake Martinez asked a woman with short black hair and military bearing. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Lisa Park from South Korea. I assume you've just met your guardian as well? Guardian? Jake looked at Guardian Prime, who was now sitting regally beside his chair. That's what they're calling themselves, said a man with an Australian accent. Captain Paul Morrison here. My guardian is a golden retriever named Buddy. Except Buddy just turned into something that looks like a golden-furred dragon. Dr. Ahmed Hassan, Egypt, said an older man wearing glasses. My guardian took the form of a cat. I should have known something was unusual when she could perform surgery better than most of my students. One by one, the 12 coordinators introduced themselves. There was Maria Santos from Brazil, whose guardian had been a parrot. Carl Johnson from Canada had been caring for a horse that was actually a shapeshifter. Elena Petrov from Russia had been working with what she thought was a service dog. Each person had the same story. They had all been caring for an animal that displayed unusual intelligence and behavior. Each had been chosen because of their demonstrated compassion and protective instincts. And each had just learned that their animal companion was actually an alien agent. This is insane, said Dr. Hassan, though he didn't sound upset about it. 3 years I've been working with ISIS and she's been evaluating humanity the entire time. The question is, said Lieutenant Colonel Park, what do we do now? We have less than 72 hours to prepare for an alien invasion. Guardian Prime spoke up and Jake realized that all the Guardians were communicating with their coordinators simultaneously. Each of you has access to technologies that have been positioned in your regions over the past 3 years. Jake, there is a facility approximately 50 kilometers from your location that contains everything you will need. What kind of facility? Jake asked. It appears to be an abandoned military base, but it has been extensively modified. There are shield generators capable of protecting the entire Denver metropolitan area, communication systems that can coordinate with military forces worldwide, and defensive weapons that can engage targets in Earth's orbit. Lieutenant Colonel Park leaned forward in her video window. My guardian is telling me the same thing about a facility near Seoul. We have shield technology and orbital defense platforms. Mine too, said Captain Morrison. There's apparently a network of these facilities all over the world, connected by quantum communication systems. Dr. Hassan adjusted his glasses. My guardian says we also have medical technology that can treat injuries from weapons we've never encountered before. How long have you been planning this? Guardian Prime answered for all of them. The Galactic Patrol has been preparing for this possibility for 50 Earth years. We knew that eventually, the Devourers would detect your world's growing electromagnetic signature. We have been building defenses while waiting for humanity to develop sufficient unity and technology to use them effectively. But we're not unified, protested Maria Santos from Brazil. Half the world's countries can't agree on anything. That is about to change, said Guardian Prime. In approximately 1 hour, every major world leader will receive undeniable proof of the coming invasion. They will also learn about the defense network and the 12 coordinators who can operate it. Jake felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. How are we supposed to convince world leaders to trust us? The answer came from Elena Petrov in Russia. We don't convince them. We demonstrate. My guardian says the first wave of Devourer scouts will arrive in 36 hours. When they attack, and our defenses successfully repel them, the world will have no choice but to believe. The first wave is a test, Guardian Prime explained. The Devourers send scouts to assess a world's defenses before committing their main fleet. If we can destroy the scout ships, we buy ourselves time to prepare for the real invasion. Captain Morrison's voice carried a note of skepticism. 12 people operating alien technology they don't understand, trying to coordinate a global defense against an enemy they know nothing about. What could go wrong? Everything, Jake said honestly. But what choice do we have? Dr. Hassan nodded grimly. My guardian has been showing me medical files from other worlds that faced the Devourers. The ones that surrendered without fighting were enslaved and had their populations reduced by 90%. The ones that fought even if they lost were eventually rescued by the Galactic Patrol and given protected status. So we fight, said Lieutenant Colonel Park simply. That's what soldiers do. We're not all soldiers, pointed out Maria Santos. No, Jake said, looking at Guardian Prime's golden eyes. But we're all people who've spent our lives taking care of others. That's why we were chosen. Guardian Prime's voice carried a note of pride. Each of you has demonstrated the same quality that impressed me about Jake. You see value in beings that others overlook. You protect those who cannot protect themselves. These are the qualities that will make humanity a valuable addition to the galactic community. The communication screen chimed with an urgent message. Carl Johnson from Canada spoke first. My guardian is receiving updated intelligence. The Devourer fleet is larger than expected. They're bringing colony ships. What does that mean? Asked Elena Petrov. Guardian Prime's expression grew serious. It means they plan to occupy Earth permanently, rather than simply strip it of resources. They intend to use your world as a breeding ground for their species. The weight of this information settled over the group like a dark cloud. They weren't just fighting for their lives or their freedom. They were fighting to prevent Earth from becoming a devourer nursery. How long do we have? Jake asked. The scout ships will arrive in 34 hours, Guardian Prime replied. The main fleet will arrive 18 hours after that. We have 52 hours to prepare humanity for its first interstellar war. Jake looked around at the faces on his screen. 12 people from different countries, cultures, and backgrounds united by their willingness to care for others. It wasn't much of an army, but it was what humanity had. Then we'd better get started, Jake said. Guardian Prime, show me this facility. The drive to the abandoned military base took Jake and Guardian Prime through winding mountain roads outside Denver. Jake had driven past this facility countless times over the years, thinking it was just another piece of Cold War history left to decay. The rusted signs and broken fences had always made it look completely abandoned. How long has this really been operational? Jake asked as they approached the main gate. Construction began 3 years ago, shortly after I arrived on Earth, Guardian Prime replied. The facility was built using Kithran mining techniques that leave no surface traces. Everything you see above ground is camouflage. As they reached the gate, Guardian Prime placed his paw on what looked like a broken intercom box. Immediately, the rusted metal surface shimmered and revealed a sophisticated scanning device. Jake felt a brief tingling sensation as invisible beams swept over him and the vehicle. Identity confirmed. Jake Martinez, primary coordinator, North American Defense Grid, announced a pleasant voice. Welcome to Facility 7. The apparently broken gate swung open smoothly and Jake drove through. As soon as they passed the threshold, the world around them changed. The broken concrete and rusted buildings were replaced by pristine white structures and carefully maintained grounds. The transformation was so complete that Jake had to look back to confirm they had really driven through the same gate. Holographic camouflage, Guardian Prime explained. Anyone approaching this facility without proper authorization will see only abandoned ruins. The technology bends light around the actual structures. Jake parked in front of what appeared to be the main building. The structure was larger than it had seemed from outside, with clean lines and no visible windows. The surface looked like white metal but felt warm to the touch when Jake placed his hand against it. The building materials are grown rather than manufactured, Guardian Prime said as they approached the entrance. They're actually a form of crystalline organism that shapes itself according to program specifications. The entrance opened automatically as they approached. Inside, Jake found himself in a vast command center that looked like something from a science fiction movie. Dozens of workstations lined the walls, each equipped with displays showing incomprehensible data streams. In the center of the room was a massive holographic projector that currently displayed a three-dimensional map of Earth. "This is incredible," Jake breathed. "How did you build all this without anyone noticing?" "The Kithran approach to construction is very different from human methods," Guardian Prime replied. "We grow our structures from seed materials introduced into the ground. The building literally assembled itself over the course of several months." Jake approached one of the workstations and immediately understood why he had been chosen. Despite the alien technology, the interface was intuitive. Military-style displays showed troop movements, supply lines, and defensive positions. The data was presented in formats that Jake recognized from his years in the Army. "You designed this for human operators," Jake realized. "Each facility has been customized for its primary coordinator," Guardian Prime confirmed. Dr. Hassan's facility emphasizes medical systems and biological warfare countermeasures. Lieutenant Colonel Park's facility focuses on air defense and missile intercept systems. Yours specializes in ground-based defense and population protection. The central holographic display changed to show the current positions of the approaching Devourer scout ships. They were still beyond Pluto but moving at incredible speed. Jake could see trajectory lines showing their approach vectors. "How fast are they traveling?" Jake asked. "Approximately 12% of light speed," Guardian Prime replied. "Devourer ships sacrifice maneuverability for raw velocity. They depend on overwhelming firepower rather than tactical superiority." Jake studied the display more carefully. "These approach vectors, they're not random. They're coming in from multiple directions to prevent us from concentrating our defenses." "Exactly. The Devourers have fought many species over the millennia. They know how to coordinate attacks for maximum effectiveness." A new voice spoke from behind them. "But they've never fought humans before." Jake turned to see a woman in military uniform approaching. She was tall and athletic, with graying hair pulled back in a practical style. Her bearing immediately identified her as career military. "General Patricia Williams, Colorado National Guard," she introduced herself. "I received a very interesting phone call about an hour ago from someone claiming to be the Secretary of Defense. Apparently, we're about to fight an alien invasion using technology that doesn't officially exist." Guardian Prime stepped forward and dipped his head respectfully. "General Williams, I am Guardian Prime of the Galactic Patrol. Thank you for coming." The general looked at Guardian Prime for a long moment, then nodded. "Well, I've seen stranger things. Not many, but a few. What do you need from me?" "Coordination with existing military forces," Jake replied. "We can't do this alone. We need to integrate this defense network with conventional military assets." General Williams moved to one of the workstations and began examining the displays. "These shield generators, how do they work?" "They create a barrier of charged particles that can deflect energy weapons and kinetic projectiles," Guardian Prime explained. "Each generator can protect approximately 50 square kilometers. We have 47 generators positioned around major population centers in North America." "What about power requirements?" "The generators tap directly into Earth's magnetic field. They're essentially self-sustaining as long as the planet continues to rotate." General Williams nodded approvingly. "Good. We won't have to worry about fuel supplies or power grids failing under attack." She turned to Jake. "What about offensive capabilities?" Guardian Prime led them to another section of the command center. Here the displays showed weapon systems that Jake had never imagined. Each facility is equipped with quantum resonance cannons capable of engaging targets anywhere within the solar system. The weapons use controlled antimatter reactions to create focused energy beams. Antimatter, General Williams repeated. How much explosive force are we talking about? A single shot has the equivalent energy of approximately 10 kilotons of TNT, Guardian Prime replied. However, the energy is focused into a beam rather than an explosion, making it ideal for precision strikes against spacecraft. Jake felt a chill of excitement and terror. How many shots can we fire? Each facility can fire continuously for approximately 6 Earth hours before requiring a cooling period. Coordinated firing from all 12 facilities should be sufficient to destroy the scout ships. The communication system activated, showing the faces of the other 11 coordinators. Lieutenant Colonel Park spoke first. We've just received confirmation from South Korean Military Command. They're mobilizing every air defense system in the country. Same here in Australia, reported Captain Morrison. The Prime Minister has authorized full military cooperation. Every fighter jet in the country is being armed and fueled. Dr. Hassan's face showed concern. We're having more difficulty in the Middle East. Several governments are claiming this is an elaborate hoax designed to justify military action by Western powers. That was expected, Guardian Prime said. Some regions will be more skeptical than others. However, when the scout ships appear on radar, all doubts will be resolved. Maria Santos from Brazil spoke up. My Guardian says the scout ships will begin their attack by targeting major cities. They want to cause maximum panic and confusion, which is why the shield generators are positioned around population centers, Jake realized. The first priority is protecting civilians. General Williams studied the defensive layout on the holographic display. This is actually a solid strategy. Protect the population centers, engage the enemy at maximum range, and coordinate with conventional forces for mop-up operations. There's one more thing, Guardian Prime said quietly. The Devourers will try to capture humans for study. Any ship that gets through our defenses will likely attempt to land and take prisoners. Over my dead body, General Williams said grimly. Guardian Prime's golden eyes showed something that might have been approval. That is exactly the response we hoped for. The Galactic Patrol has observed that humans fight most effectively when protecting others. The central display chimed with an urgent alert. New data was streaming in from deep space monitoring stations. What is it? Jake asked. Guardian Prime studied the information with obvious concern. The scout ships have increased their velocity. They will arrive 8 hours earlier than predicted. How much time do we have? General Williams demanded. 26 hours until the first scout ship enters Earth's defensive perimeter. Jake felt the weight of command settling on his shoulders. 26 hours to coordinate a global defense using technology he barely understood, working with people he had just met, against an enemy that had conquered hundreds of worlds. Then we'd better stop talking and start working, he said. General, I need you to coordinate with conventional military forces. Guardian Prime, show me how to operate these weapon systems. And Jake, Guardian Prime added, remember that you are not just fighting for Earth. You are fighting for humanity's place in the galaxy. Every action you take will be observed and recorded by the Galactic Patrol. Jake looked at the faces of his fellow coordinators on the communication S. The next 18 hours passed in a blur of activity that Jake would later remember as the most intense period of his life. The command center became a hub of coordinated chaos as military personnel from around the world worked alongside alien technology to prepare for humanity's first interstellar battle. General Williams had proven invaluable in bridging the gap between conventional military thinking and the advanced defensive systems. She established communication protocols with NORAD, the Pentagon, and military commands across the globe. Within 6 hours, every major Air Force base was coordinating with the 12 Guardian facilities. The beauty of this setup, General Williams explained to Jake as they watched coordinated military exercises on the holographic display, is that it doesn't replace our existing defenses. It enhances them. Jake watched as F-22 Raptors practiced flying in formation with the energy signatures from the quantum resonance cannons. The human pilots couldn't see the alien weapons, but they could coordinate their attacks using targeting data provided by the Guardian facilities. How are the other coordinators doing? Jake asked Guardian Prime. Lieutenant Colonel Park has successfully integrated South Korean and Japanese air defenses with the Asian defense grid, Guardian Prime replied. Captain Morrison has coordinated with Australian and New Zealand naval forces to establish a Pacific perimeter. Dr. Hassan is making progress despite political complications in his region. The communication screen activated, showing all 12 coordinators. Jake could see the exhaustion on everyone's faces, but also a grim determination. Status report, Jake called out. European grid is online, reported Elena Petrov from Russia. NATO forces are fully integrated with Guardian defensive systems. We've managed to overcome initial skepticism from several governments. South American grid shows green across the board. Maria Santos added, Brazilian Air Force has been conducting joint exercises with Guardian targeting systems for the past 4 hours. Dr. Hassan looked tired but satisfied. Middle Eastern coordination is finally coming together. It took direct intervention from the United Nations, but we now have joint operations agreements with 15 countries in the region. African grid is operational, reported Dr. Sarah Kim from Kenya. We've established coordination with 32 national defense forces. Unity of command was achieved when people saw the shield generators activate during testing. Jake felt a surge of pride in his species. Despite language barriers, political differences, and centuries of conflict, humanity was coming together to face this threat. Guardian Prime, what's the status of the approaching scout ships? 8 ships total approaching from different vectors. The lead ship will enter Earth's orbital defense zone in 7 hours and 43 minutes. They are maintaining formation and have not yet detected our defensive preparations. General Williams studied the tactical display. Their approach pattern suggests they plan to attack major population centers simultaneously. New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow, Sydney, Cairo, Mumbai, and Sao Paulo. 1 ship for each major continent, Jake realized. They want to hit us everywhere at once to prevent coordinated response, which would work against most species, Guardian Prime observed. However, humans have demonstrated an unusual ability to coordinate across vast distances and cultural differences. The observation reminded Jake of something that had been bothering him since the crisis began. Guardian Prime, you said this was a test. What exactly is the Galactic Patrol looking for? Guardian Prime's golden eyes grew thoughtful. The Galactic Council has learned that technological advancement alone does not make a species suitable for galactic citizenship. Many highly advanced civilizations have been too focused on individual achievement to work effectively with other species. So you're testing our ability to cooperate, General Williams said. Partially, but more importantly, we are observing whether humanity can maintain its compassionate nature under extreme stress. The galaxy has seen many species that became brutal and aggressive when faced with extinction-level threats. Jake understood. You want to see if we'll sacrifice our values to survive? Exactly. A species that abandons its principles in crisis will inevitably become a source of conflict in the galactic community. But a species that maintains its compassion while fighting for survival becomes a stabilizing force. The communication system chimed with an urgent message from Captain Morrison in Australia. We're receiving reports of mass evacuations beginning spontaneously in major cities. People are moving away from urban centers without being ordered to do so. Same thing happening here, reported Elena Petrov. Moscow residents are leaving the city in organized groups. They're not panicking, but they're definitely taking the threat seriously. Dr. Hassan nodded. Cairo is seeing similar movements. Families are taking elderly relatives and young children to rural areas. It's like they instinctively know where the attacks will focus. Jake looked at Guardian Prime. Did you arrange this somehow? No, this is entirely human behavior. Your species has an instinctive understanding of survival strategies that extends beyond individual self-preservation. General Williams was monitoring global communications. This is remarkable. The evacuation movements are being coordinated through social media and personal networks. No government ordered this, but millions of people are moving in organized patterns that maximize safety while minimizing resource conflicts. It's more than that, Jake realized as he studied the global population movements. Look at the patterns. The evacuations are leaving clear fields, a fire for our defensive systems while ensuring that maximum numbers of people are protected by the shield generators. Your species is demonstrating strategic thinking at a planetary level, Guardian Prime observed with obvious admiration. This is exactly the kind of behavior that impresses the Galactic Council. The tactical display updated with new information. Guardian Prime, the scout ships are accelerating again. They'll arrive 3 hours early. How much time do we have? General Williams asked. 4 hours and 17 minutes until the first ship enters weapon range. Jake activated the global communication system to address all coordinators simultaneously. This is it, everyone. Final preparations begin now. All Guardian facilities switch to combat readiness. All conventional forces move to predetermined positions. Over the next hour, Jake watched humanity transform into something he had never seen before. Military forces from dozens of countries coordinated their movements with precision that would have been impossible without the Guardian communication systems. But more importantly, civilian populations were organizing themselves into support networks that would keep essential services running during the battle. "Jake," Guardian Prime said quietly, "there's something you should know about the weapon systems." "What?" "They are designed to be operated by beings with strong emotional connections to what they are protecting. The quantum resonance cannons respond to the operator's mental state. Fear or anger will reduce their effectiveness, but love and determination will enhance their power significantly." Jake understood immediately. "That's why you chose people who care for others. Our emotional connection to Earth and humanity will make us better weapons operators." "Precisely. A soldier fighting for orders will be less effective than someone fighting for family." General Williams looked up from her communications console. "All North American air defense systems report ready. Canada, Mexico, and the United States are operating as a single coordinated unit. I've never seen anything like it." The global communication screen showed all 12 coordinators at their positions. Each facility was now fully staffed with military personnel working alongside Guardian technology. Jake could see the same expression on every face, nervous excitement mixed with fierce determination. "Guardian Prime," Jake said, "I need to ask you something." "What is it?" "When this is over, assuming we win, what happens to Earth?" Guardian Prime's expression grew warm. "If you succeed in defending your world while maintaining your values, humanity will be invited to join the Galactic Patrol as full members. You will have access to technologies that will solve most of your planetary problems: clean energy, space travel, advanced medicine. And if we fail? If you fail but fight honorably, Earth will be designated as a protected world. The Galactic Patrol will ensure your safety for the next 1,000 years while you continue to develop." Jake nodded. "And if we win by becoming monsters?" Guardian Prime's golden eyes grew sad. "Then you will be left alone to face whatever comes next. The galaxy has no place for species that sacrifice their souls for victory." The tactical display chimed with a final alert. "First scout ship entering lunar orbit. Estimated time to Earth intercept 37 minutes. Jake looked around the command center at the humans and alien technology working in perfect harmony. "Then let's show the galaxy what humanity is really made of." The first Devourer scout ship appeared on Earth's sensors like a nightmare made real. It was massive, easily the size of a city, with a hull that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The ship's surface writhed with organic-looking growths that pulsed with sickly bioluminescence. Jake had seen many weapons of war during his military career, but nothing had prepared him for the sight of something that looked like a living disease flying through space. "Target confirmed," Guardian Prime announced. "Devourer scout ship approaching Earth from lunar orbit. Estimated arrival at New York Shield. Perimeter in 14 minutes. Jake watched the tactical display as 7 more identical ships appeared at different points around Earth. Each was approaching a major population center with deadly precision. The timing was perfect. They would all arrive within minutes of each other, forcing humanity to fight on 8 fronts simultaneously. "All coordinators report ready," General Williams announced from her communication station. "Global military forces are in position. Shield generators are at full power." Jake felt the weight of his species' survival pressing down on him. "Guardian Prime, how do I operate the quantum resonance cannon?" "Place your hands on the control interface and focus your thoughts on what you are protecting. The weapon will respond to your emotional connection to your target." Jake approached the weapons console. The interface was surprisingly simple, 2 handprints embedded in what looked like living crystal. When he placed his palms against the surface, he felt a tingling sensation that quickly spread up his arms and throughout his body. Suddenly, Jake could sense the approaching Devourer ship as if it were a physical presence. He could feel its hostile intent, its hunger for destruction, and its complete lack of regard for the billions of human lives on the planet below. The sensation was overwhelming and terrifying. "Focus on what you're protecting," Guardian Prime said gently. "Think about the people counting on you." Jake closed his eyes and thought about the animal shelter where this had all begun. He pictured the volunteers who came in every day to care for abandoned creatures. He thought about the families who had adopted pets and given them loving homes. He thought about children playing in parks, elderly couples holding hands, and all the small acts of kindness that made humanity worth protecting. The weapon responded immediately. Jake could feel the quantum resonance cannon charging with power that felt warm and protective rather than destructive. Through the targeting system, he could see the approaching Devourer ship with perfect clarity. First, ship entering New York SHIELD perimeter, reported Lieutenant Colonel Park from South Korea, SHIELD. Generators activating now. On the global tactical display, Jake watched as 8 shimmering barriers appeared around major cities worldwide. The shields looked like soap bubbles made of light, but he knew they were capable of deflecting weapons that could level mountains. The lead Devourer ship immediately opened fire on New York's shield. Beams of crimson energy struck the barrier and scattered harmlessly into space. The ship's weapons were powerful enough to boil oceans, but they couldn't penetrate the Guardian shield technology. All ships are engaging shields simultaneously, reported Dr. Hassan from Egypt. Shield generators holding steady at full power. Now we find out if they have any tricks we don't know about, General Williams muttered. The answer came quickly. The Devourer ship stopped firing energy weapons and began launching what looked like metallic seeds toward the shield barriers. When the projectiles struck the shields, they didn't bounce off or explode. Instead, they began to glow and slowly sink through the energy barriers. Guardian Prime, what are those things? Jake demanded. Shield penetration devices. They use quantum phase shifting to bypass energy barriers. The shields will hold for approximately 8 minutes before those devices create holes large enough for the ships to pass through. So we fight now, Jake said grimly. He focused on the approaching ship and fired the quantum resonance cannon. The beam that erupted from the hidden weapon installation was invisible to the naked eye, but Jake could feel its power through the control interface. It struck the Devourer ship's hull with the force of a small nuclear explosion, but instead of causing massive destruction, the energy was precisely focused to disrupt the ship's internal systems. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The ship's organic hull stopped pulsing, and several of the bioluminescent growths went dark. The ship began to drift off course as its propulsion systems failed. Direct hit, General Williams shouted. Jake, you damaged its engines. Around the globe, the other coordinators were achieving similar results. Jake watched on the tactical display as quantum resonance beams struck Devourer ships from 12 different directions. The coordinated attack was devastating in its precision. This is incredible, reported Captain Morrison from Australia. The ship approaching Sydney just lost all power. It's falling into the Pacific Ocean. Moscow target is down, Elena Petrov confirmed. The ship broke apart when its structural integrity failed. But the celebration was premature. The remaining Devourer ships adapted quickly to the new threat. They began erratic, evasive maneuvers while launching clouds of smaller attack craft toward Earth's surface. Guardian Prime, what are those? Jake asked as he watched hundreds of fighter-sized objects streaming toward Earth. Devourer assault pods. Each one carries a strike team designed to capture and study local populations. This is what we were most afraid of. The tactical situation changed instantly. The quantum resonance cannons were too powerful to use against the small, fast-moving assault pods without risking damage to Earth's surface. This phase of the battle would have to be fought by conventional military forces. All air defense systems, engage incoming assault pods, General Williams ordered. This is what we trained for. Jake watched in amazement as the sky around every major city erupted with missile trails and tracer fire. F-22 Raptors, F-35 Lightning fighters, and aircraft from dozens of nations converged on the Devourer, assault pods with coordinated precision that had never been achieved before in human history. The Guardian communication systems allowed pilots from different countries to coordinate their attacks in real time, sharing targeting data and tactical information instantly. Russian MiG fighters worked alongside American F-16s, while British Typhoons coordinated with Chinese J-20s. Look at this, General Williams said with obvious pride. Humanity is fighting as one species for the first time in our history. The air battle was fierce but brief. The Devourer assault pods were fast and maneuverable, but they weren't designed to face coordinated resistance from an entire planet's air defenses. Within 20 minutes, the last pod had been destroyed over the Indian Ocean. Guardian Prime, Jake called out. Status report on the main ships. 5 of the 8 scout ships have been destroyed or disabled. The remaining 3 are attempting to retreat. Should we let them go? Guardian Prime's expression grew serious. That is your choice, Jake. You have demonstrated that Earth can defend itself. Allowing them to escape would show mercy. Destroying them would show determination. Jake thought about the question for exactly 3 seconds. We let them go. They can report back that Earth is defended. But we're not monsters. Agreed, came the immediate response from Lieutenant Colonel Park. South Korean forces are standing down from pursuit. Same here, reported Captain Morrison. Australian naval forces will escort the retreating ship out of our territorial waters, but will not attack unless fired upon. One by one, the other coordinators made the same decision. Humanity had proven it could fight, but it chose to show mercy when victory was achieved. The 3 surviving Devourer ships limped away from Earth at maximum speed, leaving behind the wreckage of their companions floating in space. The battle had lasted less than 2 hours, but it had changed everything. Guardian Prime, Jake said as he stepped back from the weapons console. What happens now? Now we wait for the main fleet to arrive. The scout ships were just the first test. The real invasion force will be here in 16 hours. Jake felt his stomach drop. This wasn't the actual invasion? No, Jake. This was just the Devourer's way of testing your defenses. The main fleet consists of over 200 ships, each 10 times larger than the scouts you just fought. General Williams looked up from her communications console with a grim expression. Then we'd better use these 16 hours to prepare for the fight of our lives. Jake looked at the faces of his fellow coordinators on the communication screen. They had just won humanity's first interstellar battle, but the real test was still coming. Guardian Prime, do we have any chance against odds like that? Guardian Prime's golden eyes showed confidence that Jake found reassuring. Jake, in my centuries of service with the Galactic Patrol, I have learned that the size of a fleet matters less than the courage of those defending their home. And I have never seen a species fight with more courage than humanity just demonstrated. The tactical display updated with new information. The main Devourer fleet had begun accelerating toward Earth, and they were no longer bothering with stealth. This would be a direct assault with overwhelming force. Then we'd better get ready to show them what humans do when someone threatens our family, Jake said. The 16 hours between the scout ship attack and the arrival of the main Devourer fleet became known as the Great Preparation. Jake watched in amazement as humanity transformed itself into something unprecedented in the planet's history. Every major military force on Earth was now operating under unified command through the Guardian communication systems. Nuclear submarines surfaced to coordinate with space-based defenses. Strategic bomber wings from 6 different countries practiced joint attack formations. Most remarkably, former enemies were sharing intelligence and tactical plans with complete trust. The Russians just sent us their complete orbital tracking data, General Williams reported with obvious surprise. They're also offering to coordinate their nuclear arsenal with our quantum weapons for maximum effectiveness. China has opened all their radar installations to our network, added Dr. Kim from the African Coordination Center. They're treating this like a shared defense of their home rather than a military operation. Jake felt a surge of pride in his species, but also a growing dread as the tactical displays showed the approaching Devourer fleet. 200 massive ships, each one a mobile fortress capable of devastating entire continents. The quantum resonance cannons could destroy maybe 20 or 30 of them before being overwhelmed. Guardian Prime, Jake said quietly, be honest with me. Do we really have a chance? Guardian Prime's golden eyes met his steadily. Jake, the Galactic Patrol has been observing humanity for centuries. We have seen your species accomplish impossible things when fighting for something you love. The Devourers have never faced a species that fights with the intensity humans show when protecting their families. But they outnumber us 10 to 1. Numbers matter less than you think in space combat. The Devourers depend on overwhelming firepower and intimidation. They expect their enemies to panic and make mistakes. They have never faced coordinated resistance from an entire planet. The communication screen activated, showing Commander Zara's image from the Galactic Patrol vessel Harmony. Jake, Guardian Prime, the Galactic Council is monitoring this situation with great interest. They have never seen a species achieve such unity so quickly. What does that mean for us? Jake asked. It means that regardless of the outcome of this battle, humanity has already demonstrated qualities that impress the Council. However, There is something you should know about the approaching fleet. Jake felt his stomach tighten. What? The Devourer fleet commander is Overlord Vex, one of their most experienced generals. He has conquered over 100 worlds. This fleet represents the largest Devourer force ever assembled for a single conquest. Guardian Prime's expression grew serious. They are not just trying to conquer Earth. They are trying to prove that no species can resist them. This battle will determine whether the Devourers remain a threat to the galaxy. The weight of that statement settled over Jake like a heavy blanket. They weren't just fighting for Earth anymore. They were fighting for every world in the galaxy that might face the Devourers in the future. Then we'd better not let them down, Jake said grimly. The next few hours passed in intense preparation. Jake coordinated with military commanders across North America, while General Williams established communication protocols with global defense networks. The quantum resonance cannons were charged to maximum power, and conventional military forces took positions that would allow them to support the alien weapons. Most importantly, the civilian populations had organized themselves into support networks that would keep essential services running during the battle. Medical personnel were standing by at hospitals worldwide. Emergency services were coordinated across national boundaries. Even children were participating by helping to care for elderly relatives and pets during the crisis. Look at this, General Williams said, pointing to reports flowing in from around the world. Food distribution networks are operating at 98% efficiency, despite mass population movements. Water and power systems are being maintained by volunteer crews. It's like the entire planet has become one enormous military unit. That's exactly what happened, Guardian Prime observed. Humanity has achieved something the Galactic Council thought was impossible. You have unified your species without losing your individual cultural identities. The tactical display chimed with an urgent alert. Main Devourer fleet entering lunar orbit. Estimated time to engagement: 47 minutes. Jake studied the massive formation approaching Earth. The ships were arranged in a perfect sphere that would allow them to attack from every direction simultaneously. At the center of the formation was a ship larger than all the others, its hull covered with weapons that glowed with malevolent energy. That's Overlord Vex's command ship, Guardian Prime identified. The Devastator. It's the most powerful single vessel the Devourers have ever built. Can our weapons hurt it? If all 12 quantum resonance cannons focus on the same target simultaneously, yes, but it will require perfect coordination and timing. Jake activated the global communication system. All coordinators, this is Jake. We're going to focus all our firepower on the command ship first. If we can take out their leader, the rest of the fleet might retreat. Understood, came the immediate responses from all 11 other coordinators. Guardian Prime, what's the maximum effective range for our weapons? Approximately 50,000 kilometers. The Devourer ships will enter that range in 31 minutes. The waiting was agony. Jake watched the Devourer fleet approach with methodical precision, while humanity's defenders made final preparations. F-22 Raptors took off from hidden airfields to provide close air support. Nuclear submarines moved into position to engage any ships that might survive the initial assault. Every nation on Earth was contributing to the defense effort. Jake, Guardian Prime said softly, before the battle begins, I want you to know something. What? In all my centuries of service, I have never been prouder to fight alongside any species. Your people have shown me what true courage looks like. Jake felt tears forming in his eyes. Guardian Prime, if we don't make it through this, you will. I have seen what humans can accomplish when they fight for love rather than conquest. The Devourers have no defense against that kind of determination. The tactical display showed the Devourer fleet spreading out to surround Earth completely. 200 massive ships, each one capable of destroying a continent, moving into attack formation with deadly precision. All ships entering weapon range now, Guardian Prime announced, beginning target acquisition for coordinated strike. Jake placed his hands on the quantum resonance cannon's control interface and felt the familiar tingling sensation as the weapon responded to his mental state. He thought about the children in the Denver animal shelter, who had been afraid of Rex until they learned to trust him. He thought about families around the world who were counting on him to protect them. He thought about the future humanity might have among the stars if they could prove themselves worthy. All coordinators. Report ready, came the announcement from Lieutenant Colonel Park. Target locked on Devourer. Command ship, reported Captain Morrison. Weapons charged and ready. confirmed Dr. Hassan. Jake took a deep breath and spoke the words that would begin humanity's greatest battle. All stations, this is Jake Martinez. Fire. 12 quantum resonance cannons fired simultaneously, their invisible beams converging on the Devastator from 12 different directions. The massive command ship's shields flared and collapsed under the coordinated assault. The ship's hull cracked and split, venting atmosphere and debris into space. But Overlord Vex's ship didn't die easily. Even as it began breaking apart, it fired every weapon it possessed at Earth. Beams of crimson energy struck the planet's shield generators, overloading several and creating gaps in the defensive network. Shields down over Los Angeles and Mexico City, General Williams reported. Emergency evacuation protocols activated. The rest of the Devourer fleet opened fire immediately, targeting the exposed cities with devastating fury. But they had underestimated humanity's preparation. Conventional military forces engaged the attacking ships with weapons that had been enhanced by Guardian technology. Missiles guided by quantum targeting systems struck Devourer ships with devastating accuracy. The battle raged for 6 hours. Jake lost count of how many times he fired the quantum resonance cannon, each shot guided by his determination to protect the innocent. Around the globe, the other coordinators fought with the same desperate courage. Gradually, the tide of battle turned. The Devourer ships, designed to fight scattered, terrified enemies, found themselves facing coordinated resistance that never wavered. Human pilots flew impossible missions to protect civilian evacuation routes. Ground forces engaged Devourer landing parties with fierce determination. Most importantly, civilian populations continued to support the war effort even under direct attack. When the last Devourer ship either fled or was destroyed, Earth fell silent except for the sound of celebration erupting from every major city. Humanity had not just survived its first interstellar war. They had won it decisively. Commander Zara's image appeared on the communication screen, but she was not alone. Behind her stood representatives of dozens of alien species, all watching Earth with obvious admiration.